Hi, welcome to Teen Pride Book Talk. My name is Lucy, and this is the program on AADL TV, where each episode I take a few minutes to tell you about a young adult book that is both representative of and inclusive of folks in the LGBTQIA plus community. The book that I will be telling you about today is called We Deserve Monuments, and this is by Jas Hammond. This book is about a girl named Avery. She is in her senior year at high school in Washington, D.C., and all of a sudden her life is uprooted when she goes with her family to live with her grandmother, Mama Letty, who has cancer. So she and her family make this move to Georgia, and this is where Avery is going to spend her senior year. Right away, when they arrive, Avery can sense a real tension between her grandmother and her mom. She doesn't know why, but it's very palpable. It's very in the air. And that tension actually sort of runs throughout the book in a number of different relationships. Jas Hammond, the author, does a great job of really making you feel that tension, and so you understand how fraught these relationships are. This relationship, in fact, is so fraught that this is only the second time that Avery has ever been to visit her grandmother. Avery makes a friend with her neighbor, Simone, who is the daughter of Charlotte, and it turns out that Charlotte knew Avery's mother growing up. They lived right next door to each other, and Charlotte has been like a daughter to Grandma Letty, to Avery's grandmother, in the absence of Avery's mother. So again, this is sort of adding to a layer of tension to that mother-daughter relationship. Avery knows that her mother and Charlotte used to be much closer than they are, that they were friends, but they don't really talk or interact at all. And this is yet another mystery for Avery as to why people are behaving the way they are. Avery and Simone also have a friend named Jade. Jade is a very close friend of Simone's before Avery moves down, and they become this little threesome. Avery and Simone are Black. Jade is white, and she is the daughter of the town's most prominent white family. Her mother was murdered when Jade was very young, so she's just been raised by her father. And they own, among other things in the town, this really fancy big hotel. So between Jade's mother's murder and the strange relationship between Avery's mother and grandmother and Charlotte and Avery's mother, Avery starts to feel that there's something more insidious in this town that really creates this feeling of unease in Avery. And as she starts to learn the history, she learns that there is this racist past in the town that's actually tied pretty closely to her own family. And there might have been something that happened between Jade's grandparents and Avery's grandparents, and this creates another tension, but they have to decide, are they friends outside of that? And what is Avery's role in this community? In the meantime, Avery and Charlotte have become closer and closer. Avery's pansexual and she's panromantic, and she is out at the beginning of the book. That is not part of the story. Charlotte is not out and is worried about having to go through that with her mother and whether or not she will be accepted. And then it turns out that Avery and Simone's mothers were in fact very close. They were in love and they had a physical relationship. As Avery learns these truths, she wonders how much more she wants to uncover. Will knowing all the things she's learning alleviate the tension or just make it worse? The more she digs into, for instance, Jade's past and Jade's family's past, will she be in danger of ruining that friendship? And there's sort of this legacy of the Jim Crow era that remains. The trauma that created has been inherited and passed down through generations. So though Avery and Jade might want to leave some of their experiences behind, for Avery, that is a challenge. Avery is also concerned about ruining her relationship with Simone as she starts to dig more into what was really going on between her mother and Charlotte. And is this something that Simone will want to know? And so she's sort of torn between maintaining her friendships, which she's made these really close friends. She doesn't feel so out of place anymore in Georgia, or finding out the truth about her family and perhaps being able to relieve some of that tension and just to understand what it is about this town that sort of seems so mysterious. One thing I really liked about this book is that None of these characters are perfect. None of them always make the right choices. And they're messy. They relate to each other in a way that creates tension. There's these messy relationships. The family dynamics are messy. They're not neat and tidy. And you see this generational trauma that's been passed down. You see it in Jade with her mother and how her mother got murdered and the story there. You see it with Avery and her mother and her grandmother. But what's interesting between Grandma Letty and Avery's mother and Avery is that you are getting 3 different generations of a reality, and they are all valid, but they are all different because all of those people are experiencing the moments that they're in differently because of the traumas that they've faced in the past and the experiences that they've had in the past. As I said, these characters aren't perfect, and this book definitely addresses some of their moral choices, their moralities. And they are not amoral people, but they make mistakes and they misjudge situations, and maybe they do things for the wrong reasons sometimes. Avery and her family members and her friends, all of these characters learn that even though you experience pain and you are in pain, doesn't mean that you can't turn around and inflict pain on somebody else. And yet there is this joyful relationship that's building between Simone and Avery, and there is also this friendship between Avery and Jade. And so Jess Hammond is asking us to hold this joy, these new relationships, these friendships, and this pain, and whatever experience runs between them, to hold these both in our mind at once. And that's challenging for a reader, but it's a good challenge, and it's a realistic challenge. These are real and complex emotions that people experience at the same time. Jess Hammond has really done a wonderful job of making you feel all these things when you're reading this book. This book's very immersive. The descriptions in the setting give it almost the Southern Gothic feel to describe this sort of nefariousness of this town. And as I said, Avery is already out at the beginning of this story, so that is not a story about that. We do learn about her mother's relationship, and Simone has to come to terms with her queerness. But the story for Avery is less about self-discovery and more about finding permission to be who she wants to be, both permission from others, but also permission from within herself. And that experience that Avery's going through sort of branches out into the other characters. These characters' stories and emotional journeys are all very tied together. They run on parallel paths, but they also cross. Characters are all very well developed. The writing is really great, and the story just pulls you in and makes you feel all the tension that is there, but also experience these romantic moments as well. That is We Deserve Monuments by Jess Hammond. Thanks for joining me.